It's a movement. We're talking about unity. We're talking about unity. So we're aimed to taking down the system of race by educating, enlightening, informing, and positively debating with those who have counterviews.
Welcome to Talk About Unity here on the Edge Radio Network. We're glad to be here today, and this is the show about unity where we say, don't push me because I'm close to the edge.
I'm trying not to lose my head.
That's Edge Radio Network. That's where we are today.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
All right. And we're trying to keep from going under today. Lots of stuff out in the news, and we're really trying to keep from going under. We want to cover that at the top of the show because this is the show about unity. So anything that is disunity, we definitely want to bring up on the show. And we had some of that disunity happening over the last few days in Wisconsin and in Louisiana with the shooting of Trayford Pellerin and Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake is in serious condition. He's the one that happened actually in Wisconsin, and he's still recovering. But the other one, Trayford Pellerin, was actually killed, and that was Lafayette, Louisiana. Both of them very tragic stories. Yeah. Both of them, another one that will be added to the list that people have begun to create of such catastrophes in our country. And so we, as I say, at American Unity Movement, we always want to talk about solutions because every opportunity is an opportunity for unity.
Yes.
And so we want to look at that. And so as we think about that, what do you think is going to happen in our society now? I mean, because this is another one that blows up an already explosive narrative that's happening. Everybody's already at each other about this. What kind of impact do you think these two things will have on our society in the coming weeks?
Well, it has a lot to do with those that are telling the story because we're finding that in not all cases, but in some cases that the video and the audio is being edited and you don't hear the whole story. And so some of it's just totally, you see it for what it really truly is. And it is a terrible, it's all a terrible injustice. There's always more training. There's things that we can do. But there's what happened before, what's happening during, and what's happening after. And I think if we can keep that in perspective and realize that before we just run to judgment, that we really wait and then take action. Because I think what happens a lot of times is the knee jerk is what we've always reinforced in our minds that, bad police, or, they're only good police. And obviously that person did something wrong. Well, we don't know for sure until we see the story in its full context. So
I think that's a challenge.
I think it's so important that we really have some restraint and then really open up the conversation. What can we do together in unity in the community to keep these things from happening? You know, part of that is a conversation that we have to have with those that would not comply with what the officers are asking. Part of it is realize we do have mental health issues in our community that really need to be addressed. Because I think a lot of what we're seeing is if there was somebody that was more grounded emotionally, that they would be less likely to do some of the things that they're doing. But then sometimes maybe in context, maybe they're running for their life. Maybe they're just afraid and they're being misinterpreted by the police. And I always look at, man, and we're always armchair quarterbacking it.
Right.
What could we, if I was in that situation, I probably would have done this. Well, yeah, your adrenaline's not flowing either. It's not in the middle of the night. You weren't threatened the night before. So we really can't put ourselves in their situation. But I think if we just have restraint till we know the full story, unedited full story, I think maybe we would have a different perspective or maybe not. So,
and that's what's so tough for us to show that restraint because like we always come with the issue of, well, let's talk about this together and let's see what we can ascertain together as we work in unity to come up with this. But when you're in a country as divided as we are right now, and you start from that point of division, then it's automatically I'm going to stand on my side. It reminds me of the story of David and Goliath in the Bible. It says when, the Philistines were on one side and Israel was on the other hill, that's where we are. We're so separated and divided. And that's kind of where we start. And when we start that way, it's going to be tough to come to any resolution at all. And so that's why we're the American Unity Movement, and that's why we have Talk About Unity, because we really desire that we talk about unity and we inspire you to talk about unity. Let's start from a position of unity. And so one of the things we're going to do, and we might not have time in today's show, but we do want you to begin to call in. They'll show a hotline number on the screen. But sometimes we want you, and we'll probably dedicate a whole show to just call-ins so that we can have you call in with your input, because one of the things that we think is it's going to be our collective efforts together to do the thing, to do this unity thing, because I don't have all the good ideas, neither does Richard.
No,
But I tell you what, we got a lot more together than we do separately.
We do. Yeah, and I do want to say this as you guys are calling in. I am not the guy that's going to act like I know everything. I've told you this before. I've told you this before. I have blind spots. I know I do. I know I don't have a perspective that others in our community do. And I want to learn. I want to recognize those blind spots when I don't. And let's have this conversation. Because there's a lot of stuff that's happening today that just absolutely does not make sense. From politics to church, to business, to culture, to this separation and segregation that still exists in our society, that I believe if we could just get past some of this and make some progress, I believe that there'd be a domino effect and we could really make some progress that I believe we can just really start moving forward exponentially.
And it's interesting how these things are happening across the country, and we've got riots and protests still happening across the country. One of the things I did last year, from June to December, I traveled around the country and found many groups like-minded as I am about this unity issue. And so I wanted to highlight a few of those, because I want people to understand that everybody is not divided. I know what you get on the media, what you get, it's sensationalized, and you think that everybody is fighting. There are a lot of people out there doing the work of unity besides us here at Talk About Unity at Edge Radio. So let me cover a few of those just so I can send them a shout out and let them know that, hey, I'm thinking about them. And we will continue to build a force that will unite, because that's going to be the answer. I don't care whether you vote for Trump, whether you vote for Biden. We're going to have to be united if we're going to move this country forward. It's going to be our responsibility. So started out, there was a group, a Kingdom group out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They're doing good things. They've been, way before any of this stuff happened, we're talking years, they've been bringing different groups together along racial lines. They have black and white men, and they do a unity breakfast every month. They've been doing this for a while. So they've already got the cause of unity. That's a great thing happening. There's a place called the Center for Biblical Unity.
Come on.
And they're really good. Monique Duson, and I plan on working with her to do a lot of great things, because she is quite the same as the movement that we've got here at Talk About Unity and the American Unity Movement. So Center for Biblical Unity, look her up online and you'll find some great information. There's a group in Atlanta called One Race Atlanta. Hey, once again, Erase Race, we believe that there's only one race, and so we're down with them. That's out of Atlanta. There's a group right here in Texas called Reconciliation Eagles. Another group, been working for years. And so you've got so many groups of people who've been working for years. And of course, we've been doing the work that we've been doing for years now and continue to want to push that. So a lot of groups doing a lot of great things. And so that's what Talk About Unity is about. We're trying to find those connections. People call them intersections, where everybody wants to do some unity stuff. And that's what we're really trying to do. Okay.
I just think it is so important that we continue to come together and just really just own our stuff as much as we possibly can. This is just a season and a time where, if there's ever been a need to just lay down our defenses and our barriers and just move forward together and just open up and realize the knee-jerk reaction is, in the past, has been to call a name. If all of a sudden your defense is really indefensible, you can't really speak to winning your argument, then what's happened in the past on all sides of the aisle is throw out, well, you're a racist, or you're this, or you're that. And that's not the answer. I just believe that we need to have the conversation, seek first to understand, then be understood, and just continue along those lines and realize sometimes we're wrong and we don't know it. So
yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Don't know what you don't know.
So that's that blind spot thing. Okay, so one thing before we get to the meat of our show, we got a show planned today, and I'm sure everybody's interested in the topic today because we want to talk about this issue. And of course, Black Lives Matter is the topic du jour that's happening around the country. What we want to do is come at it from a position of understanding, enlightenment, like we say in our intro, enlightenment and information, and talking to those who have counter views. All right, so we want to talk about that. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about an event that I attended this weekend, which kind of goes along with exactly what we talk about at the American Unity Network. Now, I've got a book here, and it's called The Dream King. All right, and it's written by these two guys, Will Ford and Matt Lockett. And I don't have the time in today's broadcast to go in depth about what they're really doing. And I'm going to try to briefly tell you because it's really just amazing. But it's what we talk about that needs to happen in our country. And it is the building of relationships.
Yes.
It's all about relationships. And so in this story, which is a real life story, and I told Will he's got to make this a documentary. So they had a racial reconciliation meeting this past weekend. Right. I was like, oh no, I don't need to go to another racial reconciliation meeting. I've been going to those things for years. I'm talking about decades. I have been. And I was going, another chance for people to say, hey, white people, you need to ask for forgiveness. Black people, you need to grant them forgiveness, whatever. I said, we don't need more of that stuff. We need some action. And I went there and I got something totally different. And these guys tell the story about how intricately woven their destinies were and how they came together to realize that they were linked through slavery and relatives, and they used Dr. King's quote where he talked about from his I Have a Dream speech, one day the children of slave owners and slaves will sit together at the table of brotherhood. That is their story. In a nutshell, that is their story. And you'd be amazed how connected they are and how they met themselves so randomly and they lived out that thing. And I think that's huge for us to understand because most people think that, you know, man, America is racist and it's always been that way and it'll always be that way. They tell a different story because you see the progression of how life is changing in this country. Yeah. And sometimes these things that we see that are so bad, those are what I call birthing pains. They're something new is happening. And so that's what's happening. Change is in fact happening. And we need to understand that and be able to live according to that and not think that things are always the same and they'll always be the same. You know, so it's a really great story. And by the way, and so we'll have them try to schedule them for September, October. We're lining up our guests for September and October on here on Talk About Unity. And so we'll have them in on the show so they can tell that story. You'll be fascinated. It's riveting and it just really grips you. I mean, if you didn't want to buy the book, you'll buy the book after you hear them tell that story because you want to know, and because it makes you want to look into your background too and find some of these connections that we have. Because everybody really, all of us are immigrants to this country. We all came here some kind of way. All came here a different way. And so none of us are natives here. And so it's interesting to find the connections that we have via that. So really just good stuff before we start on our Black Lives Matter.
The whole apology tour that's going around, I think maybe some of that's done some good. But I think what would be so much more powerful is if people could just do that if that's what you feel like you need to do. But then go into the conversation and ask the question, what can I do? But then what can we do together to make this better? Because there's a lot of things that are so confusing to me today. You know, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, which is really what we were going to talk mostly about today.
We'll be clear today. We'll be clear.
Yeah, well,
we'll know everything.
When I was at Sandra Bland's funeral and speaking and loving on the family, that's the Christian word we use, we loving on the family, and someone from the crowd says, do Black Lives Matter? I said, absolutely, Black Lives Matter. And I'd never heard the other phrase, but all lives matter too. Right. I know some people hate that phrase. But instead of repeating that phrase over anymore, I mean, that's the first time I'd ever heard that.
Yeah, that was
that was my knee jerk. Absolutely, Black Lives Matter. And I notice how all lives matter offends people sometimes. So what I choose to do now is when I'm having that conversation with a black person that's asking the question with kind of an edge most of the time, what I do is I say, all Black lives matter. The unborn Black lives matter.
Wow. How do they respond to that?
The orphan, yeah, right? The orphan Black lives. The single moms trying to raise their kids, her lives matter. This father of Black children that for whatever reason is now alienated from his kids and his wife, whatever, his life matters. The men that have been incarcerated for dumb drug charges, that hopefully we're seeing some turnaround on some of these things. We still got a long way to go. His life matters. The parents of these young Black men and women that are gunned down in the streets, man, their life matters. We need to look at the whole community.
So do they
all Black lives matter.
So, but do they take that as a distraction, just like all lives matter? Do they respond the same way? They don't?
No, they don't. They don't, because when they realize I'm asking and I'm saying it with conviction that no, number one, your life matters to me. Your children's life matters to me. Your parents being protected, their life matters to me. And it's more than a 30-second conversation.
Right.
It's really digging into, look me in the eye and let's have this conversation. Then all of a sudden we've made a step. We haven't fixed everything. Maybe haven't fixed anything, but at least they know I'm not your enemy. Come on, let's break some bread. Yeah. Let's spend some time together.
Well, that's the thing. It has to do with motive. And if you start out with the motive of, I really want to hear, I really want to feel, I really want to talk with you, then I think that's a lot different, because everybody doesn't start at that place. And if you don't start at that place, it can be very tough to have the conversation that's needed to be had. And so, very good. All right, so let's begin to talk about it. We're going to go ahead and transition to this part of the show. We're going to pull up and so that you see on the screen, because one of the things I didn't want to do, I always talk about how you don't want to mischaracterize, misrepresent people in their positions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put up a Black Lives Matter slide that shows a statement from their website on what they believe. We're going to put that up on the screen so that we can follow along, and you can see that we picked out, particularly on that screen, some highlighted areas. And those are the things that we're going to kind of hit upon. Of course, because I don't want to mischaracterize, I'm going to read it verbatim.
Okay.
I'm going to read it verbatim and then say what impact I think that has on us all and our different view of those things. Okay, so while it seems like a lot, and we'll talk about some of these things, we've got enough time left in the show so that we can cover it all, so that I don't have to accidentally mischaracterize. But starting from the beginning, it says, Black Lives Matter began as a call to action in response to state-sanctioned violence and anti-Black racism. Our intention from the very beginning was to connect Black people from all over the world who have a shared desire for justice to act together in their communities. The impetus for that commitment was and still is the rampant and deliberate violence inflicted on us by the state. Okay, so in that first paragraph, I just want to cover some things that we talk about here. It says, it began as a call of action in response to state-sanctioned violence and anti-Black racism. And of course, we want to hear opposite views, but I'm not sure it's state-sanctioned. When you say state-sanctioned, that means, and I think they're saying state-sanctioned because some of these things might have happened and nobody knew about them, or some of these things happened and the guys, they didn't get charges filed because they didn't think that it was a criminal act. So that's different than state-sanctioned, of course. And it's a lot different than state-sanctioned. And so while you could argue about, well, people, they didn't take any action, we know now, of course, as we find these things and as this stuff has come to light, more action is being taken now. I mean, and maybe it is an issue of, I don't know if it was state sanctioned or we didn't have videos. We didn't have a lot of the things, and maybe some of this, and so it could look state sanctioned very much. But in the second paragraph, it says, enraged by the death of Trayvon Martin and the subsequent acquittal of his killer, George Zimmerman, and inspired by the 31-day takeover of the Florida State Capitol by Power U and the Dream Defenders, we took to the streets. A year later, we set out together on the Black Lives Matter Freedom Ride to Ferguson, Missouri, in search of justice for Mike Brown and all those who have been torn apart by state-sanctioned violence and anti-Black racism. Now, let's talk about that one for just a second. This is the one that's really gets a lot of people up in arms, all right? Because, and here's a point that I contend, and everybody can argue with me, and I'll argue with this one forever. The big problem that we have, and we talk about this in the context of race as well, is that because people have the same skin color, and we put certain acts by those people of certain skin colors in one box, and they don't all belong in the same box. So if you put some of the cases, and I remember one of the what I thought was most flagrant was Philando Castile that happened there in Minnesota. When he was shot, If you put that in the same category as Mike Brown, they don't belong. They absolutely don't belong. I don't care what color their skin was. They don't belong in the same category. Philando Castile looked like a clear and egregious injustice by the police. And I think that police officer was acquitted as well, or wasn't charged or whatever. And I thought that was an injustice. I really just thought that was an injustice. Mike Brown is a totally different story. Fighting with the cop, wrestling for the cop's gun as it was reported, and then getting, and then, you know, and in some of the videos that the factual videos that we did have, he went into the store prior to that and was roughing up one of the store owners, whatever. And so, totally different story. And the thing that they said, hands up, don't shoot, they found their investigation didn't happen. Right. So those aren't the same as a more clear violation, something that is arguable. So Mike Brown and state sanctioned, once again, are questionable. And so that is some of the background when we look at some of what Black Lives Matter talks about there. So let's continue on. All right. So it says, Ferguson helped to catalyze a movement to which we've all helped give life. Organizers who call this network home have ousted, and they're saying the work that Black Lives Matter has done, they've ousted anti-Black politicians, won critical legislation to benefit Black lives, and changed the terms of the debate on Blackness around the world. Of course, I'm anti-race, and so I believe it's a problem to talk about whiteness and Blackness, or to continue to proliferate and promulgate Blackness and whiteness. That's a problem in itself, but that's something we can discuss because Unity Movement is here to take care of that later on. Right. But it says the Black Lives Matter Global Network is as powerful as it is because of our membership, our partners, our supporters, our staff, and you. Our continued commitment to liberation for all Black people. Our continued commitment to liberation for all Black people. That's a little different than Dr. King talked about.
It is.
Because they talk about the liberation of Black people. Dr. King said, God is not determined to liberate Black men or white men. God is for the liberation of all men.
That's right.
And so that's maybe why you get some of the counter when people say Black Lives Matter, people say all lives matter. And I think people deep inside would love to be there, would love to say that, and now they feel shut down while they can't say all lives matter, even though that's true. That's true that if we value life, then we value life. And the problem with what we've seen in what they would call the anti-Black efforts by police is that those people, when they were wrong, didn't love life. They didn't love life. So that's always going to be the case in these situations where it's the issue of how do you feel about life? And so that's a little different. Now I've got something that's really interesting in their what we believe statement. They talk about the fact every day, if you look on the screen, you can see there down where it says, every day we recommit to healing ourselves and each other and to co-creating alongside comrades, allies, and family, a culture where each person feels seen, heard, and supported. You told me something about that, comrades. Tell me what you were saying. I think you were talking about T.D. Jakes and comrades.
Bishop Jakes. I was at a conference, and wow, every time he ministers, and my wife is there, she bawls. There's this connection that she has with just his flow and what he brings. And so he talked about the three different types of people in your life. He said constituents, comrades, and confidants. We're going to stick on comrades, but he said a constituent is somebody that's for what you're for. A confidant is not somebody that's for what you're for or against what you're against, but is for you, and you have those rare, and hey, hang on to that. But the other one, comrade, he said a comrade is someone that is against what you're against. That, you know what, that is a Soviet Union term, comrade. And so the thing that I'm really wanting to underscore is a comrade is only going to be with you for a limited amount of time because they're against what you're against. But when that changes, all of a sudden either that battle is over or they change their mind or they change the terms of what you're against, then you go off in two different directions. It is really the comrade is always focusing on the negative, a constituent, which I think is something much better for us to pursue. Or where you're looking at the positive, what can we do together? What are we for? Are we for the same thing? Well, that could change too, but it's looking at it from a positive, a light perspective versus always looking at the negative. Because I just think you'll make more progress looking at things from a positive versus a negative perspective.
And one of the other things about that term comrades, that's not a normal term we normally use in our lexicon, our jargon. We don't use comrades. And one of the key things about this is most of the doctrine that you see espoused here does have kind of that feel of Karl Marx or Marxist theory. And so that would sound like something you'd hear from in Germany or even Russia, comrades. That'd be a term they'd use. So I'm wondering if some of that stuff is just, let's move this over. This sounds like a good statement. Let's adopt that statement. Let's adopt that terminology. Let's use that. And so that's some of the stuff that I think you hear. And you find evidence of Marxist type doctrine. Not only you find that here, but one of the founders of Black Lives Matter was on a radio show this past week, and that's exactly what she said. She said that we're trained Marxists. And that's interesting. And so we'll talk about that, because when you think about Marxist theory, it goes to the basic concept of the fact that you have an oppressor and an oppressed. Right. And so when they talk about an oppressor, it's very easy for them to identify the oppressor. And they would say that it's the white Anglo-Saxon male. And so they would start there, and they would say, and that's why they would say that this is a perpetual system that will never be changed because of whiteness and white males at the top. And so everyone else will always be an oppressor. And then it justifies any other actions because the oppressed always have the responsibility of overthrowing the oppressor. And so you get in this continual class struggle that never really ends. So it'll always be you against me, us against them, because there's that class struggle. And so that's why I think you would find them and some of the other statements that we see as we go forward here will be about continuing the fight.
There's another quote from Bishop Jakes that I love. It just opened up my eyes. He said, "The enemy is the enemy." The enemy is the enemy. You're looking out at who your enemy is, but I think a lot of times the biggest enemy is the enemy that doesn't allow us to really address what we can do to make things better.
Look, that's a very good one. I like that one. It's what's inside us. Okay. Yeah, it says, and so as we continue on, it says, we acknowledge, respect, and celebrate differences and commonalities. We work vigorously for freedom and justice for Black people and, by extension, all people. Now, that one's just kind of confusing to me. And I was wondering, freedom and justice for Black people and, by extension, all people. And I think it means and I hate to mischaracterize, but I think they're saying there's that segregation. We have to be free first before we can work for freedom for others. I don't think that's true. I think that when we subjugate our desires and we work for others first, putting others first, is kind of the concept a more biblical concept, that we would care about others, and we'd care more about others than we do about ourselves.
I think we do. I just wanted to bring just a point of clarity. I'm not here to, and I don't know you're not either, we're not here to bash and trash Black Lives Matter. We're really not. I'm here with open arms. And in the early days, it seemed like there was this movement, verbiage that was really let's get everybody to embrace Black Lives Matter from almost like a unity thing. It seems like that maybe has changed. I'm not here to do that. What I want to do is really engage in the conversation and what can we do together and make things better. And so the statistics are that in America today, there's 13% is the African American population in America. Why would we alienate as a organization the 87% that could be a part of getting everybody to address these social injustice issues together instead of just
and I think
instead of cancel culture,
quote unquote Black viewpoint, they would say, because we don't need your help. We don't need you. We don't need your help. But we need certain things from you, but we don't need your help. And so it furthers, once again, the segregation, the separation, and that's why we need unity. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some more of the things that we have here. And when we talk about Black Lives Matter, like I said, we're just articulating what they have here on the website, because I think a lot of people don't understand. Everybody believes that their lives matter regardless of what color they are, and including Black lives. And so we're going to go beyond that as we talk about this. And so we'll be back with you in just a second.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. A critical illness can strike without warning and wipe out your life savings. In fact, it's the #1 reason for bankruptcy. Find Health Benefits offers an affordable solution. Get up to $50,000 if you get cancer, stroke, or a heart attack, giving you the peace of mind to focus on getting better while the plan helps you to pay your bills and medical expenses. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. 66% of seniors spend more time shopping for cable TV than Medicare plans. Most say because it's just too confusing. Laws change every year. The wrong plan could cost you thousands and prevent you from seeing the doctors you want. Introducing FindHealthBenefits.com. Save time, save money, see specialists without referrals. Go to FindHealthBenefits.com or call 877-235-6094 for this informative brochure.
Society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
Are you a small business owner concerned about the downturn in the economy? Top business leaders like Mattress Mac and Warren Buffett will tell you that now is the time to promote your business more than ever. People need your services. Your business needs an edge. Learn about special advertising packages for small businesses right here on Edge Radio. Find out more, give us a call at 281-744-0446. That's 281-744-0446. Edge, because truth still matters.
Hey, welcome back to Talk About Unity here on the Edge Radio Network. We're having a great show here today with my partner and co-host there. Richard is in the house.
Hey.
And we're here talking today. We got the topic of the What We Believe statement by Black Lives Matter. A lot of people have been talking about this. Everybody's got an opinion, but we wanted to go straight off of their website. We got their What We Believe statement. We're going to put that back up on the screen because we were talking about some of the issues that we had with some of the things in that statement. And we want to know your views. And so once you identify what's in that statement and you hear us articulate our viewpoints, then we'd like to hear your viewpoints as well. We'll probably dedicate a later date a show where we take all call-ins, or the whole show will be call-ins, so that we can hear what you have to say, because we want to hear your voice. We don't have all the answers, but we think we can get them with you. So that's what we're doing. All right, so let's continue on. You can put our slide back up on the screen so that everybody can see what we're talking about. This is straight off of their website. And we're to the part of the page there where it says that we work vigorously for freedom and justice for all, for Black people, and by extension, all people. We intentionally build and nurture a beloved community that is bonded together through a beautiful struggle that is restorative, not depleting. The only problem I have with that is when we build a community, we build it with all in the community. And hopefully we don't build that community because of people's skin tones. And I think that's part of our problem. But to go on, it says, we are unapologetically Black in our positioning. Not sure what that means. In affirming that Black Lives Matter, we need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom and justice for ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. Okay? To love and desire freedom and justice for ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. And once again, you get this idea that I have to first get it for me before I can desire it for others, which I think is kind of opposite the view that we have, that when you think about others, I want to do what good for others, and I will then reap the benefits of that myself. And so in this particular case, I need justice first for me and then for others. I'm thinking that maybe some of those police officers would say were guilty of some of these infractions against quote unquote black unarmed men were thinking about themselves first. And I think we need selflessness and thinking about others first. And I think that might be the cure for some of these.
Two things on that. That goes absolutely in the opposite direction of the laws of sowing and reaping. Sowing and reaping means, it's the premise of Galatians 6:7.
No, Richard can tell y'all this because Pastor Richard, so he can tell y'all this.
Galatians 6:7, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, then he'll reap. So sowing into the direction that you want a harvest. So this hit me so strong last Sunday when I was talking to the family at the church. I said, guys, honor opens up the door for influence. Honor will open up the door of influence. If there's something that you want to change with the police department, that's a good example. Then why don't we move into a conversation and a position of honor and respect and just rapport? If you need something, instead of showing up with a list of demands, why not show up with a list of, hey, you know what? There's so much messed up in all of our community. What can we do to help this? I guarantee you, I've had the opportunity to go to many police officers, sheriffs in many communities in the middle of their crisis, in the middle of hey, their hair is on fire. They're juggling flaming cats. I'm like, hey, listen, I don't really want anything. You know what I really want to do is I want to encourage you and I want to pray with you. And to be in a sheriff's office with tears streaming down his face, he says, you have no idea that this is what I needed right now. Whenever I make the call that I need to talk to you, they always pick up for me. He'll call you back. No. They always pick up for me. But why? Because I've planted the seeds of honor, which opened up the door for influence. And I just think we need to move down that road.
That's good. And that's transformative. That really is transformative. And that's what we need in our country. We need transformative actions, and unity by itself is transformative. How do you get there? And that's why we're looking for, once again, opportunities for unity, not opportunities for division. So that's what we'll continue to talk about as we go through this. All right. So one of the other statements they make here after they say that they want that justice as a prerequisite before they can give justice, they have to first receive it. They say, we see ourselves as part of the global black family, and we are aware of the different ways we are impacted or privileged as black people who exist in different parts of the world. Now, I'm not really sure what that means, but one of the things I think that's key is that they talk about the fact that we are impacted or privileged as black people who exist in different parts of the world. Most of what you hear is that others have privilege. And they talk about that we are impacted and privileged as black people who exist in different parts of the world. And I think they're speaking specifically to that privilege that we are worldwide. And they're saying because we are so worldwide, we're part of the global black family. The reality is, of course, you're not part of the global black family. You're part of the global family. We're all connected. One of the points that I always make is that when if you take someone from the alt-right or even from the KKK or white supremacists, if they ever did their DNA, they will find out that we're all connected. We're all part of the global family. That is the challenge for us all to understand. We're all part of the global family.
That's right.
And we're not part of a global black family or the global white family. But race has done that to us. And that's why we talk about erase race. Go to our website, check that out, and you'll find out that that's true. Okay? So let's continue on. We are guided by the fact that all Black lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity. Now, we're getting ready to get into a part of this document because everyone, as soon as George Floyd happened, everybody said, yes, understood. But everybody universally condemned what happened there, and they were okay with the fact that people were saying Black Lives Matter. What they were not okay with was Black Lives Matter being an umbrella that carried all of these other things that had really nothing to do with just Black lives. And so here's some of those statements that are coming up that I think other people, and if the Black Lives Matter leadership would be open, then they would see how people could have a problem with some of these other statements. We're guided by the fact that all Black lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. Now, earlier you heard Pastor Richard talking about lives and how all Black lives mattered. He talked about lives mattering in the womb. So hopefully that would be part of the location they would be talking about.
I hope.
Because then everybody would, of course, agree with that. But some of these other things, what do you think? Why do you think of some of these other things because of someone's perceived sexual identity? Is there a cause for, are police shooting people because of their sexual identity? Or
I think somebody might think that. I think somebody might think that, depending on, I don't live in that world, but I'm sure that there are stories of people that have been mistreated or abused or hurt or maybe even died with police presence around them. And so maybe that's included. I honestly, I'm so confused with Black Lives Matter. I really am. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's many good things that can happen with an organization that's focused on Black Lives Mattering. Mm-hmm. But it seems like this part of this verbiage sounds like they're trying to throw a really wide net mm-hmm. to include people of color. That's the ant word, right? Yeah. That really are involved in these other things as well. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that's just a way to garner not only additional support but involvement.
And that's why it's problematic. If you use skin color as a reason to bring a group together, then ultimately you're going to end up with some strange relationships, strange organizations. And so that's what I think you get, because if the main thing is simply color, then you can have people, we're all the same color, but hey, by the way, we like this. And so you've got this. And so some of these other statements, make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. How does that get into this thing where we care about police brutality against citizens? Making space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. How does that get in there?
They're just wanting to be inclusive of people that are doing that. The whole conversation about transgender and people of the LGBTQ population.
You don't miss any letters.
Did I leave some out?
You left some letters
I'm not
out.
trying to be disrespectful. It's just
you're disrespectful if you leave some letters out. You will be canceled.
I love people have tried to cancel me.
People tried to cancel.
Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it can't happen. You're Richard, man of God. It can't happen. Can't cancel you.
My whole thing is I don't look at people through and say, oh yes you do. No, through the lens of color and through the lens of what they identify.
They're gonna get you again if you say colorblind. You're wrong again there. You can't say that.
Sorry,
we understand what you mean.
My whole thing is, or whatever somebody else identifies at, I look at everybody on the planet through the lens of they're a child of God. I don't care who they say they are or what they try to identify with as a man of God. I look at everybody through the lens that they have been created by Him. God has a purpose for them. They may not be fulfilling that purpose, but that's the lens that I look at people through. There's a social media.
You remember Jeffrey Dahmer? Remember him?
Yeah.
Do you look at him as being made in the image of God the same way?
That's not what God intended for him. But I believe when God was forming Jeffrey Dahmer in his mother's womb, God had a plan for him. Mm-hmm. I don't know where things got off track, but he did not fulfill God's purpose for his life.
Well, they say he became a Christian when he was in prison.
Yeah.
That was the word. He became a Christian. Now, can you imagine a Jeffrey Dahmer, a guy who not only killed people, killed them and ate them?
Yeah.
Can you imagine him being in heaven?
You know what? There was a thief on both sides of the cross of Jesus.
Yeah, boy, hard question.
On both sides. Uh-huh. And the one thief was cussing him out. And the other thief said, hey, he was rebuking the other thief. And he says, hey, Jesus, will you remember when you come into your kingdom? We never hear this guy living one good day.
Right.
And Jesus said, today, this messes up everybody's theology. Today, you will be with me in paradise. So it's not about it's not about all the good things that we do and we didn't do too many bad things. So no, it's just receiving what he did. That's it. That's just, we have to be good receivers.
And even here,
that's really hard pill for some people to swallow because people deserve that to see that person punished. Yeah. Well, what about the stuff we should be?
Well, and that's what gives us such a different view of life. If you can see the hope in people, then you can look at people, because that's one of the things that you get out of this document is that, and people who say America's racist, always has been, always will be.
Come on.
There's no hope in that. There's no hope for change. And so I will have to resist you by all means forever. And so, because there's no hope in you changing. And so the attitude that you have about the existence of life, and if you're a hopeful person, then you can see people made in the image of God and they can all be changed. And sometimes my acts, like you were saying, sowing and reaping, can be that impetus to change them, which is totally different.
This whole thing about identity is so important. What do people identify as? I'm a white guy, or I'm a black guy, or I'm this, or I'm gay, or I'm straight, or whatever. With social media, a friend of mine, hadn't seen him in 30 years. Mm-hmm. He, we're all of a sudden we're Facebook friends, and he reaches out through Messenger and says, by the way, I didn't know if you knew this, but I'm gay. And I kind of got away from it. And he says, no, really, I need you to understand I'm gay. And I said, if you don't mind, I'm not going to call you gay. I'm going to call you Freddie. Because I've always known you as Freddie. So if that's what you want to identify with, but I'm still, are you okay with me still calling you Freddie? Because that's who you are to, that's who you are to me. I don't know. Hopefully they didn't get offended because you can't read through what's written, right? You want to see their face. But my whole thing is, people can identify themselves as a lot of different things, but my first lens is child of God, and through relationships. So Freddie's Freddie, Anyway,
and so while you're making space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead, we would just see you as making space for people to lead who are different, And so and I guess we have to I got to plant my flag and say, here I am. Now accept me as this. You've already been accepted. Yeah. You've already been accepted. Yeah. You're made in the image of God. You're already accepted. Don't fight for it anymore.
There's been people that have been very influential in my life, and one dear brother told me, he said, things are always way more spiritual than we realize. They really are. They're way more, and we take these reactions from different people and we perceive them in a certain way. Oh, they're being defiant. They're just angry. Oh, they're rebellious. Oh, maybe if we could just realize that the devil hates everybody and God loves everybody, and just really take the side of, instead of being a comrade, being against something, but be for something. Wouldn't it be a better world if we all just said, I just love everybody? We may be different, may think things. Just love everybody. Come on, let's figure this thing out together. I think we'd make maybe all we need is love, right? The Beatles song,
love,
right? No,
love.
Maybe people see that as pie in the sky, but that's the way I live, Carl, and you know that.
Well, that's the challenge. For those of us who it is not pie in the sky, we've got to transfer that to others who don't believe that. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Because if I want to love you and you do things that are not lovable, that's the challenge for me. That's not your problem. That's my problem.
But when you communicate to me what it is that's rubbing you the wrong way, and I truly do love you, then it's on me to say, well, hey, this is why I do that. And maybe that really bothers you that much. Then what I need to do is say, because I do love you and I do care about you and I do value you, then I'm going to either not do that or do that in a different way where you can receive it. It's a relationship. It's about respect.
But the thing is, what if you don't do that though? Here's my challenge.
Then I'm a loser.
But if you're a loser, the challenge is, can I love the losers?
Yeah.
Can I love losers? That's the
be
challenge.
able to.
See, if Richard does all the right things, that's easy.
Yeah.
Richard gives me money, gives me food, gives me, does great things for me, whatever. That's easy love.
Mm-hmm.
But see, maybe love is meant to be tough.
It is.
Maybe love's meant to be hard. Maybe Richard should be racist and nasty and mean and ugly, can I love him then? And see, that's why I think Dr. King was so amazing.
Yeah.
That's why Dr. King was so amazing, and that's why I think we had this issue today with a generation of millennials who only view it as they're bad to us, hate them. Dr. King said, they're bad to us, love them. Whoa, that's totally different. That's some mind-blowing stuff.
Jesus blew everybody away. He said, love your enemies.
Yeah.
Pray
Same
for
thing,
those
yeah.
that curse you and be nice to those that despitefully use you. You know, we're supposed to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not easy. That's not easy.
It's kind of like the thing you use with your friend. You said was gay, and you said, "I'm going to call you Freddie." You know, it's the same thing with if someone says that guy's racist. His name is Fred. You know, his name is Fred. Engage people.
Right.
Engage people, and I think that's a place we haven't been in this country where we do build these relationships with others instead of, demonizing them,
Right.
hating them, which is easy to do.
Can you imagine the traction that Black Lives Matter could make if they went from just looking at a segment of the population? 13.4% is Black in America. If they went from that to embracing the other 87%, can you imagine how much traction that they could make if they just included everybody and say, this is my struggle, this is what I'm dealing with. Do you want to help? How do you see this? Similar to the conversation we're even having today. How can we together make progress?
Well, in a certain sense, that's what they're doing. They feel like they've done that. That's why they've got George Soros funding them to the tune of millions of dollars. And so they're able to do that because they've captured the imagination of a lot of people. However, I think there's an equal number of people who feel like we can't really accept all that you stand for. We agree with you on the police brutality, but we can't accept all the other things. And here's the big one we're going to get to before we close. I want to make sure we get this before we close out, because this is the one that most people have a problem with. I mean, everybody seems to have a problem with this, those who know. And it says in their statement of what we believe, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another. Listen to this. Care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. To the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Who's left out of that?
Oh, men.
Men. All right. So they got this other statement that says they want to dismantle the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts. In the history of America, that's not a historical patriarchal practice.
No.
Women usually stayed home, and women, the equal rights movement of the 70s was because women wanted to get out and work. And nobody was requiring them. That was pushed by women.
Mm-hmm.
And so to say that that's a patriarchal practice, I think is wrong. But that one, what do you think about that one? Disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. In my mind, that's saying disrupt the biblical institutional family from the Bible. That's what I think that says. Okay. Yeah. What do you think? We'll close out on this because we're headed to the end here. So give me your view on that.
My whole thing is I believe that if you look at the founding board, there wasn't much diversity in the founding board. My understanding, they were all women. Mm-hmm. There was not the thought of a man being involved in the family unit in the very beginning. I could be wrong, and I apologize, but that's from my research. That's what I saw.
Talking about for Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their entire board was ladies.
Right.
And I think that's a narrow perspective that needs to be addressed. We don't want to do away with, abolish, destroy the family unit. No, we need to find out what are the challenges. What's causing Black men to walk away from their homes? Understand the struggles of 74% of women that are raising children in a home without a husband or man in the home is living either below or in poverty. There's so many things. Where are the mentors? Where's the men? Where's the undergirding of the family, the encouragement? Where's the counseling? Where's the recover from addiction things or family violence culture that's been propagated over centuries? Where's the reach out into saying, come on, let's address these issues? And there's a lot of layers to this onion that needs to be peeled.
Yeah, and this conversation will continue because we'll be back next week, and not only will we cover some of these things again, but we'll talk about the progression of what's happened with Jacob Blake and Trayford Peller and some of the most recent shootings, and we'll talk about how you can find an opportunity for unity in the midst of all this chaos. That's what we're going to bring about when we talk next week on talk about
unity.
Don't push us because we're close to the
Edge.
edge.